There is a virus taking over all the apes of the planet Earth. Not only does it give them increased intelligence, enough to rival even humans, but also those mutations, the virus constantly mutating, means that all the apes are gaining new abilities. This led to apes leading a revolution on humanity, attempting to destroy them so they could have the world as their own. The leader of this revolution is known as Caesar, champion of the apes. He had been part of a research facility where they were attempting to create a new antibody for humans so they could become essentially immortal, using apes as a test subject. But it went wrong, creating the disease. Now, Caesar's mutation was quite simple, as his was the first mutation and the virus hadn't yet mutated. He simply gained blue skin colour and 2 extra arms, though his enhanced intelligence was enough for him to become the leader of the ape revolution, covering himself into twos to appear more menacing. As the apes constantly began revering him as their leader, he became that very thing, though he wouldn't have much of a chance at fighting off humans, until another ape joined his ranks as his right hand. Now, I'll admit, I'm fully just making this video because I knew I needed something easy to draw this week. I do 2 videos a week, and I knew I was really tired out from some of the last drawings of this year's Mesozoic, that I just needed to do something a bit easier. I had this video planned for a while, in case I ever needed an easier video, and so here it is. But I am pretty happy with how these turned out, especially the next one. I have watched the Planet of the Apes films. They're probably some of my favourite films. I didn't know that much of the lore. I did have to go back, look it up, do a bit of research. But overall, I'm really happy with how all these turned out. I really wanted to do a more dynamic pose for this one, because I feel like I've been repeating a lot of poses lately, and they're not very dynamic. You can see at the start I struggled a lot with trying to find a pose. I didn't really find one in the end. I went with kind of this more simple pose. But I am pretty happy with how it turned out. I like how I do the environments in this one, where I blur them out, similar to what I started doing in my Invincibles dragons. And I do think I need to work on my destroyed buildings a bit more. And I've been working on that more of Kaiju, week 1 video coming out soon. But this is the end of this drawing, so let's have a look at the finished piece. Now, as we discussed, Caesar had a right-hand man, known as the second Cobra, and he had one of the strongest mutations, having psychic abilities and the ability to fly. Though first we'll cover his origin. From birth, he was an experiment, made to try and solve all human diseases, and create a super weapon that could win any war. Since he was experimented on since birth, his biology was changed, and he had wires and tubes covered in him so much of his life. Some of them became part of his organism and his body, and that means that the changes from his mutation didn't happen. He was going to change a lot more, but it didn't end up working. He was made of the DNA of many other animals, but eventually that didn't really matter, as he was mostly still ape. However, that meant that his body was fractured and changed, and he had a scar across his eye. When the scientists who were working on him ran out of funding, though, he was sold off to a circus to be looked at because of his strange appearance. This made him grow a resentment towards humans, as he had even more enhanced intelligence than most apes with the mutation. And he began formulating a plan that even the smartest humans might not have been able to come up with, for him to overthrow reality. But it wouldn't end up working, as he would be taken in and recruited by the champion of the apes, Caesar. But Cobra II would eventually betray him, as his bloodlust for destroying humanity eventually corrupted his mind, and destruction was all he could think about, even to his once ally, Caesar. I'll be completely honest, this is easily my favourite of the episode. For a video that was meant to be a bit easier, this turned out way better than I expected. And I wasn't expecting it to be my favourite, but I feel like I did quite the dynamic pose. I'm really bad at drawing guns, so I'll probably have to work on that in the future. But I really like the pose. It's not that dynamic, but it's very different to what I normally do. The background is simple, so it doesn't detract from him, but detailed enough so that its simplicity isn't distracting. And overall, this combination, it seemed a bit random when I came up with it, but I'm really happy with how the drawing turned out, and it's easily my favourite from this episode. It just worked so well together. I don't even know really how to explain it, but the finished piece for this drawing is coming up. I know I've been doing a bit more with, like, background centering around a specific colour. Overall, this is easily my favourite. Let's have a look. The second Cobra was eventually passed away, though, a story for another day. However, later on in the ape's rule, someone else would take his place. Someone who would eventually become known as Vespicus Caesar, who took the doctrine of the original Caesar of peace and unity and twisted it. He would create a new civilization for the apes, and he would build his kingdom. He made a civilization where he would live in a hive-like, rusted and destroyed boat he made using his abilities, where he would send out his minions to mind control and punish the apes that didn't follow his rule to mine resources so he could discover more about humanity. You see, his mutation led to him becoming somewhat like a bee. He could release minions similar to like a queen bee to control apes as they would be burnt into his back, and he could create the hive he lived in, as well as having the ability of flight. However, he would eventually be taken out by a very human that he sought to seek the technology of, and their ally, another ape, and their flaming bird familiar who had somehow also gained the virus. But that's a story for another day. I went a bit simple with the lore there. I feel like that would definitely need to be expanded on if we ever do another episode of this. Do the actual ape we talked about there, the protagonist of, I think it's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I forget the names of them. But I'm really not that happy with how this one turned out. I've liked doing my symmetrical drawings recently. I liked having this one front facing it. I wanted to make it seem more powerful, but I just don't really think that worked out. Honestly, I don't really get why. I think, first of all, it doesn't have enough contrast from the background. The background seems a bit way too simple for this one. And overall, I just feel like I feel like the actual mix is good. I'm happy with how I mixed parts of both. But the actual drawing, I don't think, turned out very well. Which is a shame, because I think this one was the one I had the best idea for. Making him, like, able to control the other apes using, like, the minions he sends out. Like, I'm thinking, like, Combees from Vespiquen. And they both have very royal appearances. So overall, I think the concept for this drawing was really cool. I like how the lawn turned out, even if it was a bit vague. This is probably my least favourite of the episode. But hey, that's just all the more reason to make another episode and do a bit better. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.